Hey, Blake, it's me, Ian. And in today's video, I've wanted to do this for a while again, and I'm going to do it. So, I like to review favorite albums of mine. This is a more detailed review rather than when I go through like my top 10 CDs. And also, this is David Bowie, of course, which is an important artist who I really love. And what can I say? But I just want to talk about this from a more personal viewpoint with a mixture of my usual style, going on and on, but not too long. I don't want to go too long. So, this is Space Oddity, the second studio album recorded in 1969, released in 1969, but effectively it was re-released in 1972 with the success of Ziggy Stardust, and this particular cover, as you see here on this one, is the cover of that re-released album. That was a more modern, up-to-date the way Bowie looked, because in 1969 Bowie didn't look like this. Anyhow, basically what happened, he'd recorded the first David Bowie album, and it was considered more sort of the Anthony Newley kind of style. It wasn't a particularly big success, but it got a deal with Mercury and Philips, and they wanted to put out a second album on the back of him recording this, what they considered, well, some people considered a novelty single, which was Space Oddity, influenced by Kubrick, 2001 at that time, and of course the moon landing, 1969, don't forget. So the record company was very aware that they could cash in on that, and so he wrote this song, and it got to number 5 in the charts, so did well. Bowie was in the light. They've got to cash in, so they got Tony Visconti in to produce the album, and Tony Visconti, as we know, has a brilliant career with Bowie all the way right through his career. But Visconti at various points has been involved with him, and he was right at the end as well, as we know. Visconti took control of the album, though he got Gus Dudgeon to do the sort of engineering producing on Space Oddity. I don't think he actually, funny enough, at the time rated Space Oddity that highly, but it was the lead single. Instead of the album being called David Bowie, it would be called Space Oddity, and that's what it was known. And then Bowie had written various songs at the time. Now, at the time as well, Bowie was quite unhappy. Certain things had been happening in his personal life. The death of his father, for instance, and that had an effect on him. But let me just say the tracks. I'll just run through some of the tracks. The Space Oddity. Then there's Unwashed and Somewhat Slightly Dazed. Unwashed and Somewhat Slightly Dazed is really Bowie's take on grief from the death of his father. There's a lot of unhappiness in Bowie at the time, which is really sad, but there we are. So unfortunately that happened. And then we've got, after that, we've got Letter to Hermione. Then we've got Letter to Hermione is sort of almost sort of a light, sort of cheerful, I don't know. It's just a typical more older style Bowie. So the Signet Committee now for me is very interesting. This second song already shows his sci-fi roots beginning. It's almost also like in his writing also, there's almost this and it's happening at the time. People are beginning to get a bit disillusioned, actually, with the hippie thing going on. And I think Bowie is looking away from that as well. It was a very important period for him, definitely. He was looking at other areas, and he always had a great storytelling. Even in the first album, his observations and that. And he was obviously interested in sci-fi and fantasy, and that comes out in Signant Committee, definitely. Then after Signant Committee, we've got Janine, which is just a happy kind of throwaway song, if you want to call it like that. Then we've got An Occasional Dream, which is actually really beautiful and quite touching as a song. Almost has bits of dreamlike quality in there. Then we get the ultimate fantasy song, which again is in a beautiful sort of story, a sort of legend kind of story, which is Wild Eyed Boy from Free Cloud. Absolutely love it. I love that. It is definitely one of my favorites. I mean, it's just the way also the arrangement of the song is, everything about it is just beautiful, and it has a sadness, but you can see Bowie there. Yeah, he's really into that story, and the storytelling works so well, and he paints a wonderful picture, and the music matches that so well. Then the next one we have, in a way, you could say he's more back to how he was before, but he's moved on. It's God Knows I'm Good, which is about a woman who gets basically, shoplifting, basically. She's involved in that, and it's her emotions and about what happens. And it's a very clever story. Very, very clever. And then all this again leads up to the very last track, which is a very long track, and it's called Memory of a Free Festival. It's such a climax. It's such a clever song. It's almost got that, like in Hey Jude, how it goes on with a big sort of finale. This is like that. He perhaps have been paying attention there as an influence. But again, there's something really good about this song, something different. It hints at a lot of things to come. Now, on this edition, on this CD, this is from the early 90s releases of the CDs, and there's a couple of more versions, bonus tracks, which is not on the other regular release, which is more on the Memory of a Free Festival. So that is quite interesting. But say my overall view of this album is that I really enjoy it still. I mean, I don't know how many times I've played this album over the years. Ever since I first heard it, because I remember 72 was the year, and as soon as they were released, we got the albums, and you just wanted more and more Bowie, and you were a bit surprised. I'm sure lots of people were surprised when they put this on, how far away it seemed from Ziggy Stardust. But now, when you look at the musical influences are interesting here. We've got probably sort of a folk kind of rock. We've got some of the psychedelic stuff, hints of country even. We've got hints, prog rock. We've got quite a mixture going on. And the next album would go more into a harder rock with Men Who Sold the World. And all these have been combined together, and we get the blueprint in many ways for Ziggy Stardust, which will be Hunky Dory, which is an absolutely amazing album and still comes into the classic releases of albums too. So we get that view of how he's going to develop musically. But as soon as I heard this one, I really liked it. I liked it because, he's at the beginning of that journey. He's looking and searching for what he's not quite sure. He's the thing about Bowie, I think he had a vision and it was finding how to get there, and what that vision was. I know that sounds a bit crazy, but he was experimenting, looking, trying to find something. He kind of knew what he wanted, but he didn't. I know it sounds silly, but in his writing styles and the way he's putting his work together suggests that, and it's not really that far away. Unfortunately, this album was, as I say, it was a commercial failure, which is pretty sad, really. So he had to wait, before this album really got into the arena, with Ziggy Stardust, in effect, releasing this into the world again. I'm glad that happened. I'm glad we were able to experience this album still and appreciate it, because, I really do. Sometimes, I don't know why, this sometimes is like a comfort album to me. If, for instance, I have no idea what I want to play, for some reason, I'll put this album on. I'll just think, oh yeah, I'll play that. I know it very well, and I kind of just enjoy the comfort. I like feeling the sort of the way Bowie is in this album, even though it's a very sad album for him. He's getting through Greece, but he's finding his way, and there is joy in the sense of the way he's actually looking at the music, the way he's trying to find that path that will lead him to what he knows, what he wants. I mean, in a way, he had a taste of it with Space Oddity. Space Oddity must have indicated to him that there was something there that he could develop, and it was just developing it. And now, Bowie was always somebody who was very aware of the kinds of music that was going on around him. He was very much a student of music, taking account of everything, and this album for 1969 reflects that. And he just carried on because he produced The Man Who Sold the World. And of course, The Man Who Sold the World is an important album because we come into contact with the first beginnings, formation of the Spiders from Mars. With Mick Ronson, his meeting with Mick Ronson must have been a really important point. It was, and it's a much more heavier rock album. Incidentally, musicians on this album are interesting. Herbie Flowers, who a lot of people just think is one of the great musicians, he's on here, and so is Rick Wakeman as well. And Rick Wakeman, of course, famously, is on Life on Mars, playing the piano. What can I say about that? Yeah. So, this is a great album. I'm sure a lot of you Bowie fans know it as well inside out, and perhaps love it like I do. But it is good for people to actually recognise it. It's an important stepping stone, an important foundation into what Bowie becomes. And here we're getting glimpses of that, which it's very much different from his Anthony Newley days when he's going around the way he is in that. But even there you get glimpses about what he's about. But here, that is going way into the history. He's moving forward and developing his own writing style, his own way of looking at things. And it's great to see. So I think, you can see that I really I do have such a passion for this album, and it's a great album, and what more can I say about it? I could probably start going on and on, but I won't, better not. I better be quiet now, lad. Yeah, so I will. Anyhow, there it is. So that's Space Oddity, 1969. Bowie's second album. Right. So, if you're interested in what I've been going on about, why don't you subscribe? You know, it's free as well, and it lets you know about when I'm producing videos. And also, if you like it, please like this, you know. I know some of you possibly are not into the same kind of film kind of stuff and collecting that I do, but, you know, this might give you an interest in music, you know. Have a listen, you know. It's always good music. Hey, yes. So anyhow, I love music, so why not, you know. So anyhow, that's it, folks. So all I've got to say is, I'll see thee, and I'll see thee again.